Holy cinematic crap, Batman. How's it going, old schoolers? Shuckalaka kapow, you're kicking it old school with Russell J.S., and I am your host, Russell J.S. This is another They Should Have Quit While They Were Ahead segments, where I started the whole Batman montage. This is where I say they should have quit while they were ahead. Okay, in 1978, the box office receipts were just piling high with Superman the movie starring Christopher Reeve, Marlon Brando, and Margot Kidder had just come out. And it was the start of something where they were going to make franchises and the superhero movies, all kinds, all the comic book movies, they were setting the bar for what was going to happen. And then you fast forward a little over a decade later, Tim Burton helms a project of a long awaited of what they wanted, but they didn't know how it was going to go about, with the very first Batman movie in 1989 starring Jack Nicholson, Michael Keaton, and Kim Basinger, with somewhat of a star-studded cast like Billy D. Williams as Harvey Dent, or Jerry Hall as Alicia Hunt, and Jack Palance as Boss Carl Grissom. But what happened was Batmania in 1989 was so huge you couldn't get away from it to save your life. I didn't even want part of it. I mean, the two movies I was opting for the summer blockbusters of 89, I already saw Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. And I remember when they played, before the movie, they played the trailer for Batman, the first trailer. And my dad was just in awe of it because, he grew up reading Batman comics. And I didn't care for it because I thought it was too dramatic, too serious, and too dark. I was used to the likes of the 1960s TV show with Adam West and Burt Ward, and also, the New Adventures of Batman and Robin, that animated show by Filmation, and the Super Friends. But what happened was, again, I went to see it at the theater and I became obsessed with Batman all of a sudden. But Batman became so huge, so, back to being a pop culture icon, that in 3 years they would come out with a sequel where Michael Keaton once again returns as Batman. Batman Returns, get it? Danny DeVito as the Penguin, Michelle Pfeiffer as Catwoman. And once again, Batmania was on the rise. I mean, we were just waiting for what the next Batman movie was going to be. And then you fast forward another 3 years in 1995, Tim Burton would step down as the director, to where the third Batman movie would be helmed by Joel Schumacher. You might know him from such movies as The Client, The Incredible Shrinking Woman, and other thing, and The Lost Boys. And in this sequel, it was pretty decent, except Michael Keaton didn't like the direction that he was doing. Yeah, this is where the franchise, in a way, it was rich in story and it was a good movie, but the problem was, they were using all kinds of 40s and 50s cars all of a sudden, and of course, who can forget the god-awful bat nipples on the suit? But what happened was Michael Keaton didn't like the direction it was going in. Tim Burton still stuck around as executive producer. And, well, Michael Keaton would go ahead and pass the cape and cowl over to Val Kilmer, who would go ahead and become our new Batman in Batman Forever, with yet another star-studded cast featuring Nicole Kidman, Chris O'Donnell, Tommy Lee Jones as Two-Face, Jim Carrey as the Riddler, Drew Barrymore, and, the only original actors that would be returning from the previous two movies would be Michael Gough as Alfred and Pat Hingle as Commissioner Gordon. And you would also get appearances by Ed Begley Jr. and, I forget who else, but in many ways, the story was decent. The setup was awesome. I mean, it was almost like Batman the Animated Series, the live action movie. And Chris O'Donnell would debut as Robin. And it was pretty decent. And then you fast forward to 1997, we would find out in the 2 years between 95 to 97, after Batman Forever had come out, that Val Kilmer was being replaced. And it was going to become a big mistake. And the new villain, they went ahead and, at the time, if you put Arnold Schwarzenegger in anything, it would turn to gold. And Arnold Schwarzenegger got top billing for it. The new Batman that would come out, and I had to bring myself to do this, but you know what? Hey, you know, this is where I say they should have quit while they were ahead, right after Batman Forever. If Val Kilmer, because of creative differences he had with Joel Schumacher, or should I say Joel Schumacher, you know, it would have been a better movie. But yeah, George Clooney went and took. This is where I say Clooney nearly killed Batman. Yeah, this is what we got for the next movie. Yeah, I checked it out at the library like I did with Jaws 3 and Jaws the Revenge, and it was bloody awful. And once again, a star studded cast with Arnold Schwarzenegger as the lead, George Clooney is Batman, Chris O'Donnell is Robin, Alicia Silverstone as Batgirl, and Uma Thurman as Poison Ivy. And again, you still had a star studded cast like, I forgot the Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition model that Bruce Wayne was dating in it. But you also had John Glover from, if you remember, he's been in Smallville. He was also the LA slimeball from Scrooge that was trying to take Frank Cross's job, Bill Murray. And they were, you know, they also, Mike Ditka had a small part in it as well. And it was corny. It was, I mean, forget about Batman, the animated series, the live action movie. This is more like Batman, the revised TV show version. All they needed was in fight sequences to have pow and oof, right there in front of the screen. And there they are with the theme song going na 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 na, like that. It was just bloody awful. I went to see it the night it opened, and I'll never forget it because I remember I was working in a movie theater at the time, but our theater wasn't showing it because we only showed what was called sub run at the time, which meant all the movies, like say the summer blockbusters that come out at the beginning of the summer, that they would start in late May or early June. We wouldn't get them until the tail end of summer, or we wouldn't get them until, I mean, sometimes we wouldn't get them until it was about a month until they come out to VHS video. Yeah, remember those? Before DVD. But yeah, it was an excuse to put Arnold Schwarzenegger in the lead. And I will say he was good in the part as a villain. I mean, the last time we saw Arnold as a villain was the original Terminator movie in 1984. So when you think about it, we hadn't seen Arnold as a villain in 13 years at the time. But yeah, this is another bad Oscar, and I don't mean awesome. Let's check this bad Oscar out, shall we? Bad Oscar. This is an atrocious garbage heap. I mean, this is something that I watch when I'm depressed. They should have, Joel Schumacher should have just let Val Kilmer be, and rest in peace, Val Kilmer. Be glad that you weren't part of this. Be glad. And the movie's only saving grace probably was Arnold Schwarzenegger and Uma Thurman. And Uma Thurman looked really good in tight spandex, and Alicia Silverstone was stunningly hot as Batgirl. And of course, just like the one problem I had with Batman Forever, however, was when Batman would suit up and you get all those shots of Val Kilmer's crotch and butt. They do the same thing in this movie where you get shots of George Clooney's crotch and butt and Chris O'Donnell's crotch and butt. and it was uncalled for. And then the tagline where at the beginning where Robin says, I want, when the Batmobile emerges, Robin says, I want a car, chicks dig the car. And Batman responds with, this is why Superman works alone. I mean, the movie was just bad. It was horrible. I went to go see it at the theater, and I can remember the only good thing that came out of it was, yeah, I'll just say that's $6 I'll never see again. Yeah, I paid $6 because I was still somewhat a student in high school, and I met up with a girl that night. I probably got high, and I got a little action, but that's enough of that. But if you haven't seen this movie, just check it out at the local public library. It's free. Don't pay for a download or anything like that or streaming. Don't waste your money on this. See, I got this out of the library. And you know what? This is where I say George, and I despise George Clooney now. The only, I have one George Clooney movie in my collection, in my DVD collection, and it's a classic. It's this awesome treasure right here, From Dusk Till Dawn. This is the only George Clooney movie I own in my DVD collection. But you know what? Where I say George Clooney, he nearly killed the Batman franchise. I mean, they were getting ready. They were even attempting to have George Clooney return in the cape and cowl for Batman Triumphant. And in this one, he was going to come face to face with the Scarecrow, and he was going to get hit with the Scarecrow's hallucinogenic gas to where he was going to have nightmares of the villains from the previous movies, and he was going to feel like and the Scarecrow was going to put him on trial. You were going to get appearances, you get cameos once again from Jack Nicholson and Danny DeVito. I guess Tommy Lee Jones, because it wouldn't make sense. It didn't even make sense to have, I love Tommy Lee Jones, don't get me wrong. It didn't make sense to have him as Harvey Dent Two-Face because Billy D. Williams in the first movie was Harvey Dent, and he was supposed to be the next Two-Face. But they decided to shelf the project because Batman and Robin tanked at the box office. Everybody hated it. But it wouldn't be for another decade where they would revise the Batman brand, and they'd save the Scarecrow segment for what would become the awesomely great Batman Begins. And that was to me, that's the ultimate Batman movie. I mean, don't get me wrong. This one is a masterpiece. This one is a classic. I mean, that should have really been the Batman movie that we should have gotten. But, Tim Burton drew inspiration from the graphic novel The Killing Joke. And I think also The Dark Knight Returns. So we ended up getting not really the beginning story, but, like we got Batman on the big screen. And I think at the time that was enough. And, well, you fast forward 8 years after the original Batman, we had to settle for this load of cow manure, of bat crap. Yeah, I consider this bat crap. Ironically enough, I couldn't stick this in the gas tank of my car because you know what? The bat feces would have been the real bat feces would have fueled my car. And I'll tell you, this movie, $6 I paid for the ticket when I went to go see it at the theater. And again, that's $6 I'll never get back. I mean, I think toilet paper, $6 worth of toilet paper is worth more than a ticket to go see this crap. And I can't believe they even have it on Blu-ray. But, yep, this is one of those things where I said they should have quit while they were ahead. And George Clooney nearly killed Batman. That's all I have for that. I now got to go ahead and guzzle some ginger ale to settle my stomach after that. But as always, keep it real, keep it fresh, Keep kicking it old school. Listen to some old school rock. Listen to, you know, play some old school video games, whatever you desire. Nintendo, ColecoVision, Atari, Nintendo, whatever you desire. Keep watching old school movies. Watch this masterpiece. Don't even look at this. Get you enough. Get you enough of love. Get you enough of less drama, no drama. Get you enough of less chaos, no chaos. Get you enough of peace. And keep kicking it old school. And as always, I wish you Godspeed. May the force be with you, and shuckalaka kapow. Oh, and if you're new to the channel, hit a like, subscribe, leave comments down in the box below, ring the bell for notifications, and tell your friends, tell your family, tell your household pets. Let's get this channel going. And once again, shuckalaka kapow.